Hey crafters, welcome to She's Crafty Paperworks. I'm Jen, and this is my channel where we do all things card making and other types of paper crafts. Today we are making some cards with a winter theme, and that's because it is -10 real feel, and that's a little too cold for me. So much so that campus is closed, which means I have the day off, so bonus. And so let's make some cards. I've already pulled some stuff out. I've done a little bit of die cutting. This is what we're working with. I have two from Spellbinders, Small Die of the Month. This is from July 24 and this is from November 24. And this is Trinity Stamps. This is Concord and Ninth, and I also have this one from Concord and Ninth. So far, I've done a couple die cuts of the bundle up to use on some other cards, but I'd like to, when I'm done, do a couple more cards with these sweaters. And I also have the coordinating stamps to go with it. Go through my stash. I have, for example, a leftover pair of skates from last July. I have several different foiled backgrounds that I want to use up. Couple of things in terms of paper. I'm using mostly Concord and Ninth and Tonic Studios. If it's mirrored or pearlescent, that's Tonic Studios, and regular cardstock is C9 unless stated otherwise. I didn't use any colored cardstock. I'm going to have to use my markers. So let's pull out my sticky mat. I'm going to do that for the blush. So YR 198. There were only a few things to color on the die cuts. There was the blush for the cheeks of the polar bear. I did gray for the snout and the inside of the ears, and then the penguin's feet and beak. So that came together very quickly. Now I'm just adding a sentiment to the inside, and that comes from Alpine Village. And the inverted rectangle die is from Pink and Maine. But I love this card. It's perfect. There's not a piece that I don't love from it. For this next card, I am adding, or I'm trying to figure out first really where I want to place the polar bear in regards to the cozy. My thoughts on putting him in the middle made it seem like I was adding an extra O with his head, and I didn't want people to, in their head, immediately go to stay cozy. So I pushed the letters back and decided to go in a more kind of peeking in direction from that bottom corner. So this is how that came together. And again, this is mirror cardstock from Tonic, and it's called Turkish turquoise, and the color is spectacular. It's one of my favorite colors. It's the perfect teal blue. If you like your teals to have a strong blue, this is the turquoise blue for you. The colors that I use from C9 are Peacock, Midnight, and Oceanside. Fun cards though. Now for the next set of cards, I'm using some foiled backgrounds that I made in the beginning of the year. One of the things that I like to do is prep my backgrounds when at the same time I'm prepping my card bases. So I like to cut a big stack of those and then do some of the more tedious things. And usually for me, I love my Mink in terms of the foiling that I can do. It's very easy to use, but at the same time it can be a little tedious foiling over and over. So I like to do that in one session. So in about an hour's time I can get a big stack done, and then I use a variety of colors Now, so this card, the sentiment comes from Christina Warner. Everything else is has already been discussed. I just thought that it pulled that gold in the rainbow background, and it's not a color combination I typically would use, but I think that I really like this card in how that gold is reflecting off of the snowflake background. Because normally with backgrounds with snowflakes, you think silver or holographic, but I think the gold worked really well with this card. This one is an interesting background because we made this at the near the end of the year in one of my stenciling or backgrounds in 4 different techniques or something along those lines. I'll pop that video at the end. But we did this using this Decofoil Transfer Gel Duo and a stencil from Echo Park. And the only thing that I would say in opposite to the directions for using this if you're going to foil is leave it out for an hour or more than an hour to dry instead of the directions which say about an hour. I recommend overnight, and I had no problems with that being completely dry, so there was no kind of smushing out the sides when it went through the foil. This is just a little technique to save some cardstock and that mirror base, and so I just filled that in with another piece of cardstock just so that there was no impression based off of the card that or the layer that laid on top of it. And the black is craft foam, and I just cut that out so it provided about 1 millimeter of dimension. So 2 cards came together super quick. I love doing backgrounds with any kind of foiling because really a sentiment and some kind of statement, focal point, and that's all you really need. I have 2 more of the foiled, and these 2 I foiled with it's called, and I want to say like lavender fairy wings. It is a beautiful color, and it matches really well with the fig from Concord and Ninth cardstock. I used the fig as the base for both cards. And for the card number 5, I'm going to use the polar bear in landscape mode just because he's so large. But I wasn't quite sure the sentiment I wanted to do for him. I did stack him on 3 different layers of cardstock, but I do wish I would have elevated him to get a little bit more separation between him and the snowflakes. I opted for the sentiment to go with that May Your Day Be Snowy and Bright. Again, it's from the C9 Alpine Village, but I used also from C9 the from the Festive Blooms, the banner, and then I cut it a little bit to make it fit. Now for card number 6, I'm going to adhere the nose and eye, tiny little pieces. Then I'm going to start adhering him along with the sentiment onto a oval. It's the modern oval die cut, and I'm using this to separate the snowflakes from the bear so I have a little bit more distinction than I did from the other card. I like the other card, but um, I think that it definitely looks better when there is some kind of separation between your busy background and the focal point. Most of the time, there's exceptions. I also added some embellishments to this card just to help bring the eye into the polar bear and the focal point, just to make the look a little bit tighter. In the previous 3 cards where I had foiling, I matched that or countered that with specialty cardstock, specifically mirrored cardstock. That's not a requirement. You don't always have to match specialty cardstock with specialty cardstock. It does have a nice clean look about it, but not a requirement. These two cards I think came together quite nicely just using regular C9 cardstock. All right, I'm just building one set of ice skates. I do have the other set that is left over from July, but I did want to use some pearlescent cardstock to build these skates. And now I'm just doing a sentiment for the inside of the card. This sentiment comes from C9 and that sweater bundle. This cardstock is not from C9. In fact, it came from Joann's and it's left over from a card making session, also from July. I had already ran it through an embossing folder for both sheets. I'm using my dilutions in white linen to color the cardstock in both a splatter, but the way that it works is it tends to kind of pearlize the entire card because the way that the mica sprays out. And it gives it a very nice shimmery look all around. Plus, you have the added kind of splotches from the mica spray. I decided that wasn't enough, and I also brought in another dilution spray, and this one is in jade. And I'm using the tip to give me a little bit more control in my splatter so that I didn't go a little too heavy with this. I wanted to keep this one more pared down as opposed to the white linen. While I was waiting for that to dry, I decided to take some of that Delusions white linen and do a little bit of a splatter on the other card that I want to make with the ice skates. I'm just simply using that nozzle again, give me a little bit more control. And because I have that control, I didn't worry about bringing out my makeshift splat box. Here's another look at that shimmery background. I die cut the snowflakes in Tide Pool, which is also the same color as the base and the sentiment that I'm using for this card. For card number 8, I used both white and black pearlescent cardstock. And now I'm just adhering it without any elevation. I have so many layers going. It's fine. I did prop up that skate on top a little bit on the back just to make sure that they stayed even. But other than that, the cards came together quickly. And I do like adding that extra spatter or splatter to the back. For cards 9 and 10, I had not done any preparation like I had for the first 8 cards. So by the time I was starting all over with the die cutting, stamping, finding the sentiments that I wanted to use and all of that, I think that you can see I was starting to wear down. And I put these cards together, I think, a little bit more haphazardly than I would have if I had a little bit more time and maybe if I had just waited for the next day. And I think I would have put a little bit more detail into it. In part, I also have a problem with the fact that it seems too minimal. I do think adding the embellishments helped a lot in bringing the cards more together in your eye into the focal point. But they're okay. They're cute, but I think I could have done those better if I had given myself a little bit more time. And finally, here are cards number 9 and 10. Not too bad. I think that the embellishment does help bring your eye in and take away from some of that plainness I think that these cards have. But overall, I'm happy with the crafting session. Certainly better than braving the cold. I hope wherever you are staying safe and warm and cozy. Take care. Have a wonderful week, and I'll see you next week.